How are you, sir?
I are okay.
You are okay.
Yeah.
Having trouble with your subject-verb agreement this morning, but otherwise okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a symptom. Oh
no, you have editor's aphasia.
That's right. I do. I does? Me
You
do.
All right.
Hey, Matt. Yeah.
Let me give you an important test here. Do you know what day it is?
It is sometime in November before Thanksgiving.
Okay. Do you know your name?
I think it's Brian.
Okay. Oxford comma, yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay. You're still fine.
Wow. That was easy. I can pass that one all day long.
Yeah. You don't have an editor's concussion.
All right.
Probably
good.
just the normal kind of concussion. You're fine.
Yeah. Maybe it's just editor's cramp. It'll go away soon. Wow. It's been an interesting week since last we spoke.
Has it?
Yes, I have decided on at least one of my projects for next year.
Oh, that's good.
Because as I may have explained to you previously, I don't like New Year's resolutions.
Right.
I don't do them. There's no point to them.
I don't know if I agree with that. But.
It's because it's basically what happens is you either are successful and it's not, not a big deal. Or like the vast majority of people, you have reached far too far to try to come up with a resolution that you will achieve in the new year, and you're going to fail it anyway.
It's a very defeatist attitude.
From the outset,
I have actually known people who have accomplished their New Year's resolutions.
These people have picked easy then.
No, it's... Well, okay. You and I both know that when you set a goal, there is a way to set a proper and smart goal.
That is correct.
Unfortunately, most people just don't know that.
That's what I just said.
Right. But that's not the fault of New Year's resolutions. That's the fault of goal setting in general.
Right. But I particularly don't like New Year's resolutions because that seems to be when everybody sets their goals, or at least the vast majority of people. It doesn't occur to anybody in the middle of the year, hey, I need to lose weight. I'm going to start today. No, they will hold that off. They will hold that off till the new year. Like, I'll start that in the new year.
Well, hold on, though. I think that's exactly the power of New Year. Okay? So we go through our whole lives and, you just kind of keep doing what you're doing and you go on autopilot. And the fact that we have actually set aside a day of the year to say, okay, why don't you take a good hard look at your life? Is there something missing, something you're not accomplishing, something you'd like to do, some way that you could improve yourself? And, how about thinking about how you could fix that? I don't think that's a bad I don't think that's a bad idea for a holiday. The whole have a little bit of self-reflection and figure out how to improve yourself. In fact, I think there's far too little of that in the world right now.
Brian's New Year's resolution number 1, stop presenting Scott with points he has strong opinions on. Anyway,
what are you ever going to talk about with me? And by the way, sir, since as you pointed out, we are just a couple of days before Thanksgiving.
Yes, we're way ahead.
The idea of a holiday where maybe you should just show a little damn gratitude for what you have in your life, because no matter how bad your life is, you still have something to be thankful for, is also something people should take a little bit more seriously.
Yes, indeed. Now, having almost begun to explain what I'm doing.
You have a project, right?
I have a project. Because I don't like resolutions. I do like projects, though.
That's fine. Well, a project is just a resolution that produces a tangible outcome.
Do you want to know what my project is or not?
I think I've made it very clear that I don't.
Fine.
No, I can't. Of course I want to know.
This year, well, not this year, but next year, starting day 1, January 1st of next year, I'm going to begin mailing out what I'm calling 1 postcard a day. That's the name of the project. It is also the name of the thing I will be doing.
Oh, I like a project name that is also the stated goal and the intended outcome.
It keeps it interesting.
The instruction manual, basically.
Yeah, basically. It's one postcard a day is the project name, goal, method, the whole thing. All I have to do is collect enough names to send out one postcard a day to a different person each day.
Okay.
And I've already got a list started. I will link to this in the description so that people who might be overhearing this conversation can participate in this.
Okay.
So that will be in the show notes, the description.
You're just going to send
whatever.
it by email?
Yeah, I'm going to email a postcard.
Easiest.
That totally would be easiest. No, I'm writing a physical card. I've got a selection of, I don't know, somewhere over 400 different cards.
Well, I think that you miscounted because I'm pretty sure you only need.
Yeah, I know, but I can't buy lots of 65. I can't. Yeah, and a quarter. I'm going to send you the quarter card. It's just a stamp with a note on the back.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yeah. So anyway, one postcard a day to a different person each day. And you can participate in that. Just get on the list, which I will have linked to in the description. There are a variety of different cards. I'm not taking requests for cards. I will assure you they are not touristy cards. Okay, it's not an amazing view of downtown Sheboygan. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't expect that. You're nowhere near Sheboygan.
Yeah, I know. And you didn't want to send any. Like, you just wanted nothing to do with this project. So there you go.
I didn't even know about this project before right now.
See, there you go.
And if you hadn't shut me up, I still wouldn't know anything about this.
Personally, you're taking. Never mind. Just shut up now.
Have I ruined it yet?
Wait your turn. There's a variety of different cards I'm setting out with neat stuff on them. So if you want in on that, just follow the link. It'll be great. It'll be fun. Beautiful. Wonderful. So
when people want in on that and follow the link, are you instructing them to also send cards? Is that?
I am not. I thought about that. But I don't feel like I have to do that. I feel like if people get a card and they suddenly want to send a card to somebody, that's okay. That's cool. That's great. Nice outcome. Right. That's great. I don't feel like I want to push that on people who otherwise might not, maybe they just don't feel like it. Maybe they don't have anybody to send a card to. Maybe, I want it to be virtually no effort on their part other than signing up. Oh,
but wait, no, but what I'm asking is, so when they sign up, what are they signing up for?
They're signing up to receive a card from me. Oh. That's it. That's all.
So you said you weren't taking requests for cards. Isn't that essentially a request for a card?
No. For specific cards, like, I want something with puppies on it, or I want, whatever. You're just going to get a random card. It will have a personalized, or is at least as personalized a message on it as I can make for you. Handwritten by me, not typed, not printed out on a computer. Actual quality cards with neat things to look at on the other side, not just a picture of downtown Sheboygan.
You really, really don't care for Sheboygan, huh?
They had that one role-playing game or whatever in the mid-'80s, mid-'90s, something like that.
Wait, did they really?
Yeah, wasn't it like Monsters Ate Sheboygan or something like that? I feel like that's the title of a thing that we should know about.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're both now typing.
We're now using our memories.
Yep. The Creature That Ate Sheboygan.
There you go. The Creature That Ate Sheboygan.
I have to find a copy of this.
The Creature That Ate Sheboygan by Greg Costikian.
This game. This is the sort of thing that me and my dad would have played. It actually is rather reminiscent of They've Invaded Pleasantville.
Oh, good.
Which was a very interesting game based on pod people.
Nice.
Oh, this game looks awesome. Is it on eBay?
It says it might be, but it's on the geek market.
It's on the, what does that mean?
It's a thing on Board Game Geek that lets you exchange, buy, purchase, otherwise deal with games. It's kind of their own exchange for games and whatnot. It's the SPI Bagged Edition, 1979. $31.
Wait, I could just buy it from Board Game Geek? I am so confused here.
I think so. That seems to be.
How does this work?
Seller accepts PayPal.
I might just buy it for Allie.
Yeah,
me.
Yeah, Allie and me. Here's your link. There.
Do I have to
do
this right now? Is it going to go away?
It might. I don't know. Somebody might suddenly overhear us talking before the episode actually goes out, and then just run out and buy it on you. I don't know.
I don't have a Board Game Geek membership. Oh, this is terrible. How can I do this without?
You just basically create it. Sign up. There's no money.
I know, but I don't want you to think that I'm doing something else other than paying attention to this podcast right now as we speak.
Sir, if you were doing that, I would be surprised. It would be the first time ever.
Actually, that is not true. Usually you have my undivided attention because I am not good at multitasking. So I usually have to shut off everything else I'm doing to do this. Or really anything.
Huh.
Yeah. Are you younger than 16?
Would you like to be? Oh.
I hate when they do this. When it's like, oh, you have to scroll to the bottom of the thing to check before you can check off that you read the terms of service. It's like, we both know I'm lying. Why even go through that?
True. But for legal reasons, they have to pretend you aren't.
Oh, shoot. I already have a username. This is just a disaster now.
Wow.
All right. I'm going to assume it's not going to go away while we're recording. I am just going to remember to order it as soon as we get done recording.
Okay. All right.
I have to have this.
Okay.
Why didn't you tell me about this sooner, sir?
Because up until now.
Look at that. They weave little spider webs and destroy buildings.
Neat.
And is that a mortar?
Look at all the cool little tokens.
Some sort of artillery firing on a giant spider on the street of Sheboygan while a cop car is driving away from spider webs next to a ruined building.
Awesome.
All in silhouette token form.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's just awesome. Okay. Wreak havoc with the monster of your choice. That's the tagline.
Yeah.
I'm so going to do that.
And what's neat is it's from SPI, maker of fine wargaming board games for ages.
Serial Peripheral Interface?
Yeah, that's it exactly.
Specialty Products and Insulation Company?
Uh-huh.
Solar Power International? Swiss Precision Instruments?
Alrighty, we're done now.
Turns out SPI stands for a lot of things.
Yeah, how about that? Huh. Anyway, that little detour was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
You'll have to let me know how it plays when you get it. Right. Now I'm totally off track. Good job.
I win.
Your turns are coming.
You're sending one.
Yeah, I'm done with the postcard thing now. I'm done.
And then I asked if people are signing up. What are they signing up for? And you said to receive a postcard. And then that dispelled the source of my confusion, which was that you said people couldn't request a postcard, but you meant people couldn't request a specific postcard. And then you were insisting that they weren't touristy postcards, like pictures of downtown Sheboygan, at which point distraction.
Right.
Continue.
Because that's the way things work around here. Now, rewinding about 10 minutes worth of conversation. The only other thing I've really been up to is I've been playing more video games.
Oh, have you?
And stuff. Yeah, I have. It's true.
You tend to go back and forth. Sometimes you'll go a little while and not really be playing anything, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've been playing this obsessively.
Yeah. Yeah. The Diablo thing is still happening, and we will have some discussion about that later on. But
so you've threatened.
So I've threatened. My brother decided that he doesn't like Diablo. And since right now he is the person I play video games with when I play video games with people.
Right.
We've tried a number of things that have left us variously unsatisfied with their cooperative multiplayer experiences.
Okay.
We tried the new Gauntlet. Have you seen the new Gauntlet? Well, I say new. It's probably 3 or 4 years old by now.
Yeah, Allie and I were playing it.
It's the one where you're like digging down through a mine or something. I don't know what it is exactly. It's a pain in the butt is what it is more than anything else.
It is certainly that.
I don't like it.
Nope.
It is not the gauntlet I think of when I think gauntlet.
No, Red Wizard shot the food.
That's right. That's right. That goes on, but for some reason it's an even larger annoyance now than it was in previous versions. And I don't know why they've made that decision to do that, but whatever. Okay, so the new gauntlet was not a thing that we wanted to try or worked out for us to try anyway.
Okay.
And we tried some Overwatch for a little while, but it turns out I still hate Overwatch.
Oh.
A lot, apparently.
So
much so that we were midway into our second pickup game, and it was like, nope, I'm done. Don't want to play with these people or anybody else like them ever again.
Wow. Okay.
Honestly, if the objective is to push the cart, then everybody needs to be kind of close to the cart in order for the cart to get pushed.
Right. They either need to be pushing the cart or defending the people pushing the cart.
There you go. Not 3/4 of the way across the map, shooting at a wall because the thing you're shooting at just zipped out of your line of sight and has returned to the cart to shoot everybody else. But enough said. I'm tired of having to go to Zarya to save the entire team on these cart pushes. But that's another story. I like Zarya. She's good play. But no. The practical upshot of this is we've been sort of auditioning various games to see if they're going to be any good for us to play together, and be entertaining enough to play. And our latest effort, let's see if I've got the title right, is Divinity Original Sin 2, not enhanced, but the other version, the complete or whatever it is. Now I have to look. Definitive Edition. So Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition. So there's a mouthful of a title for you, just in case you had something that you needed to fill in with a large space of words.
Right.
And we tried that, and here's my lesson from that. It's a great game as far as I can tell.
Okay.
The problem is, if it's 2 people or more, because you can have up to, I think, 4 different people playing at the same time.
Right.
In a, kind of a, just to give you a touch point for it, kind of a Baldur's Gate style RPG situation.
Right.
Then what happens is
sort of semi-turn based, like live action with pausing, or
yes,
real time with pausing.
Yeah. What happens is, at any given time, any one person is waiting on the other 3 people to complete or do the thing that they just completed or did.
Okay.
Because
a lot of that semi-real time plus pausing aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
Because one mistake they've, well, I don't know if it's a mistake or not. It's a design choice. They have certainly made it. I would call it a mistake unless I really thought about it, and then I wouldn't call it a mistake. But what they've done is you can't plan your turn until it's your turn to do your turn.
Okay.
So what happens is you get into this big dynamic battle thing with lots of stuff going on, and one of the bad guys will take a turn.
Right.
And plan and do their thing, but because they're controlled by the computer, it doesn't take very long.
Mm-hmm.
Then one of the players will begin to plan their turn, and take quite some time to do that, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And then execute said turn.
Right.
Then another bad guy, if there happens to be more than one, will take their turn and do their thing. And then eventually it'll be your turn, and it's about 20 minutes later, and you have forgotten what it was you were going to do. Or why you were going to do it. Or the situation is fundamentally changed, and now you basically are starting from 0 every single time it comes to your turn.
See, I didn't want to say it, but I honestly wouldn't make a game like Baldur's Gate multiplayer to begin with.
Right.
Because it's very, like, the pacing of the game is very stop and plan, then do. Yeah. Stop and plan, then do.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way they were paced, and that works well for a single-player party-based RPG. And the reason that existed was because of the whole party-based aspect, where you had one person controlling a group of characters. If it wasn't one person controlling a group, you could just do real time.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Which means that what they probably should have done was just have it be real time. Okay.
Yeah. See, I mean, I would even accept, everybody plans their turn at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the computer, because it's a computer and can do these sorts of things, just sort of massages all of the input until it gets kind of a group sequence of events.
Okay. Well, yeah.
And executes them all in turn, but all the input is there already.
Or alternatively, so you can start inputting the commands for your turn at any time after you've taken your previous turn.
Right.
Right? Once your actual turn comes up in the order, you can just hit a button to commit to what you've done.
Right.
Or you can then go back and change, like redo your action sequence because things have changed. But there's a shot clock.
Right.
Where if you don't do it in a certain period of time, it's going to just execute the commands that you had already put in, which may mean that you end up like attacking the wrong target or taking a bad position or something.
Sure.
That would be an interesting mechanic.
You bet. And, I hesitate to point out that if you're really worried about screwing up your turn because of somebody else's stuff that they've done,
mm-hmm.
You are multiplayer, and there is a form of communication available to you.
Oh, well, people don't. They cannot be expected to just communicate.
I mean, you could say, hey, Scott, this turn I'm going to drop a fireball just to the left of bad guy number 2, so hopefully I can catch 1 and 2 in the blast. Take that into consideration when you plan your power attack with your sword.
Okay. You know what kills me about that whole idea? Because I'm going to go to tabletop role-playing.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. I have run for 2 types of groups when it comes to team-based combat.
Right.
Okay? The first type of group is the group that decides to run or tries to run every combat round by committee. Right. So, Alice's turn comes up and she turns to Bob and Carol and Dave and says, I don't know what to do. What should I do? And then they decide to all have this conversation about the tactics for Alice's turn. And then when Bob's turn comes up, they try to do the same thing. Now, me personally, I put the stop on that crap.
Right.
Okay, immediately. Because no.
Sure.
Combat is supposed to be fast and exciting and urgent, and that is the opposite of all of those things.
Oh, I get that. Yeah, I get that at the table.
But the other side of it, I don't want to lose this now, is the party that never, ever communicates. That each one just takes their turn completely in a vacuum and doesn't even say simple things like, I'll take the ogre, you heal Dave.
Because Dave is always falling down.
And then you try to tell them that you can communicate. Like, just talk to each other a little bit. Because those are always the parties that end up in a TPK because they can't decide to flee.
Right.
Nobody will say they're in an emergency because everybody is just operating in silence.
Uh-huh.
And then they all get killed. And then they blame me.
Right.
And so then you tell them, guys, talk about your turns. And then they decide to work out every turn by committee.
Uh-huh.
And then I have to yell at them. And then they're all wounded because it's like, well, you told us to talk, so we're talking.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And, why are you so upset? It'd be like, for the same reason I'd be upset if I asked for a cup of coffee and you decided to pour an entire pot over my head. It's like,
There's you have combat communication, okay?
Right?
It's all it has to be. All it has to be is I'm going to put a fireball here. Don't step in it.
Grenade going out.
Yeah.
Fireball coming online. Everybody back off. That's it. One sentence and you have told the party your intentions. I'm going to fireball the ogre. Everybody stand back.
Yeah.
Especially that first round of combat. Like, okay, stay clear. I'm going to launch an area spell.
Mm-hmm.
But then like it gets around to the wizard's turn, and what does the wizard say? It's like, I was going to cast an area spell, and y'all ruined it. It's like, well, then you should have said something.
So, yeah, but that's my point, though. Is this okay? So you've got, your computer, you've already, maybe everybody puts their commands in sequence. I don't know. Okay, so the guy who's going first says, okay, I'm gonna do a whirlwind attack on the 3 on the left. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Thanks. Now I know the 3 on the left are gonna have a whirlwind attack. My turn is after your turn, so I'm gonna plan my turn second with that in mind. Maybe I'll reinforce that by dropping an AOE weakening spell or whatever over there. Okay, so that they take more damage from your little whirlwind attack, or maybe I decide that the 2 on the other side of the battlefield are being unattended right at the moment, so I'm going to, throw some arrows at them or whatever. Okay, right. So I say I'm going to arrow the guys on the left, and
then someone could say something like, "Wait a minute, that sorcerer is wrecking us. Can you just take him out with your arrows?"
Sure. Boom. Do that.
We can't get close to him, and then you can change your mind.
Yes, that, and so that's that's where you plan your move, right? And then so you got the planning phase. Great. Everybody does the planning phase at the same time. They do it in turn order, and then you have the execution phase, which is the computer just running through the commands and going, "Here's what happens. Boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. These guys fall over. That guy doesn't, but he takes some wounds. That kind of stuff."
Right.
And then you go to the next phase. That way, even though the planning section is essentially dead time, okay, mm-hmm. You're still thinking about the game that's going on and the tactics you're going to employ, and that is interesting, and keeps you engaged with the combat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. Instead of what is currently going on, which is, my brother's planning his turn. Well, I wonder what the news is while I wait for him to finish whatever he's doing, so I can then have my go. Which, great. Okay, so he put some acid over there. That's great. That doesn't really help over here, though, so I guess I better maybe I can fireball a thing. I don't know. Whatever. I'll just push a button.
Right. Well, that's also there is a particular player type at role-playing games and board games who are death for this, or who kill the game, and that is, the master tactician who spends 6 hours planning their turn.
Yeah. You know what's really great is when you have 5 of those in the same group.
Yeah.
Because then no combat ever gets completed in one session, as opposed to only one getting completed.
What's the phrase? The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Yeah. Just I don't care how precisely that has to be on that pixel. Just do it.
Well, it's just like, it's, one of the things you lose when you're playing a game instead of in real life combat. I just realized that's a very odd thing to say.
Uh-huh.
It's how when you get into a battle in real life, which happens to you all the time.
Right. Sharks versus the Jets, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, exactly. Gang fights, or martial arts or fencing tournaments or whatever.
Warriors come out and play, etc.
Yeah, exactly. No, but what you lose is that urgency where you cannot plan a perfect strategy because there is a limited time for you to respond. And so you have to choose the best strategy that you can think of in a few seconds. You know?
Yeah. Which is why, on the whole, I really have been enjoying Diablo 3 here of late, because there's no planning.
Right.
It's just do.
It's real time.
Yeah, just do.
Right.
You're going to attack. We don't care what. We don't care how. You're going to attack. You've got 5 or 6 choices to make as to what you want to attack, but you'd better make them pretty darn quick. So I don't know. Anyway, that's what we've been doing, is trying to figure out what game we can play together that will entertain us both equally and not become a frustration for one of us.
Not ruin your fraternity.
Such as it is. Yes. It's a fragile fraternity. The membership is way too small. The fees are exorbitant. It's just, whatever. But so the practical upshot of which is I was playing Diablo 3 last night.
Okay.
And suddenly I got very tired of playing Diablo 3.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like in the middle of going from one location to the next, I got tired of playing it. It's like, I'm kind of done for now. I'm going to take a break from it, which is the, I'll come back to it tomorrow. I'll come back to it tomorrow. And 7 months from now, it'll be like, gosh, why don't I play Diablo 3 anymore?
Yeah, you're not coming back. When you have that moment right in the middle of the game where it just suddenly,
yeah,
I'm done.
That's
it. You're not coming back.
You're lying to yourself if you say you are, but that's okay. You're allowed to lie to yourself.
The game has lost you, and you may not even be sure why.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I'm done. It's over. So much for that.
So here's the punchline first. I rage quit the game.
Uh-oh.
And then...
Is your controller okay?
Yeah, my controller is fine. I don't do that anymore. I don't throw things the way I used to.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, when I rage quit, it's more of I swear repeatedly and shut off the game, and then usually delete because it's a digital purchase.
Right.
So I delete the game from my PlayStation and also all of my save files.
Oh, good. So it's death by fire, basically.
Yeah, it's scorched. But okay, so I actually have an odd habit of, number one, I don't keep much installed in my PlayStation. So once I'm done playing a game, I tend to delete it, because you can always download it again. So no big deal there. But number two, I have a tendency to delete my save files frequently.
Okay.
I don't keep save files from any of my games because if I'm ever going to go back and replay a game, I am replaying from the beginning. I'm never going to go back and pick up that save file again. I have to start over. Same with movies. If I walk out and, if I miss a movie, if I walk away from a movie for too long, I have to restart the movie. I'm just, I want the pure experience. I'm crazy. I admit it.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so 2 days later, I started a new game of Hollow Knight.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I was immediately filled with regret.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I immediately regretted what I had done.
Uh-huh. Hooked you that bad, huh?
I want to defend myself here. I want to think through this at you.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I sort of want to give a deconstruction of the design of Hollow Knight.
Oh,
because it is a very, very well-designed game that makes some mistakes, and I now think I have identified the mistakes.
Fair enough.
And here's the issue with Hollow Knight. A lot of people rave about this game. Like, it is the perfect expression of exploration-based games, because I refuse to call them Metroidvanias.
Sure.
I do not believe you should name a genre after one or two of its members, because that constrains the genre.
Sure.
Okay. And so, first of all, here's my experience that led me to rage quit it, because I rage quit it at the final boss.
Oh. Oh, no.
The real final boss.
I don't know what that means, but that's fine.
Okay. Well, so there's a final boss that you fight, the titular character, the Hollow Knight. Oh, by the way, spoiler alert for anybody who cares. Okay, and then if you meet certain conditions, you can cut your way into Hollow Knight's soul with a magic soul-cutting knife that you have, and fight the thing that is corrupting it in its brain. Okay, so false final boss, real final boss.
So is this whole game just a metaphor for brain cancer?
It might actually be, honestly.
Okay.
It is actually I don't know if it's a metaphor for one of the major themes is your brain getting infected.
Oh.
And then cutting the infection out by violence.
Sure. Okay. Japanning. Got it.
Yeah. Right. So here's what happened to me in my playthrough. Okay. I was playing the game, and you'll remember that I said that I felt that the game was a little bit too much. That, the normal structure of an exploration-based game is that it will kind of loosely lead you through the area and nudge you about where to go next. And sometimes it'll be a little bit firmer on that and say, okay, you have to go here. And other times it's a little more loose and it'll let you explore everywhere, but there's still a path forward that you're eventually going to have to take. Right. And then eventually you have done all of the things you need to do to meet the minimum requirements to finish the game. But then at that point, the whole world is now open to you and you can explore and collect all the stuff you've missed and see all the optional combat, right? Or optional content, right? Pretty standard structure. Okay. The issue with Hollow Knight is that it has three... Okay, wait. So this is what happened to me. I got through most of the game, okay? And I explored very thoroughly because I am a contrarian when I play exploration-based games. I can see where the game is trying to nudge me, using all of its various tricks. And I will go in every direction other than that first, so that I leave no stone unturned. Okay. And then, so I hit a point where I recognized the game was making noises of second ending based on meeting certain conditions. In this case, collecting 2 specific trinkets that would allow you to, I don't know, do something. Because at one point in a very, very far away corner of the game world, I stumbled upon half of a magic item that basically said, when the 2 halves are united, it opens the path to yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, that stinks of second ending to me. Especially because I had now reached the point where I could go and beat the game.
Sure.
Because the path to the final boss was open to me. So I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go beat the final boss now without collecting anything else. And then I'm going to come back and run around the whole world and, and collect all the stuff that I had missed so that I see both endings. Right?
Right.
Works out fine. I go, I kill the final boss, I get this ending, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is definitely not the real ending because it's wholly unsatisfying. It's just that ending of you have managed to maintain the thing that they sealed evil inside a thing.
Uh-huh.
Right? And of course the evil is breaking free because those seals never work.
No, and they really should speak to the manufacturer on those.
Right. So the ending of the game that you get in the beginning is you redo the seal. You become the basically the power source for the new seal. You seal it back up and then everything is cured. But someday that's going to break and someone else is going to have to come and do it again. Right.
Right.
That's the standard. Hey, you maintained the status quo. Good on you ending.
Right.
Okay. So then I decide that I'm going to go ahead and complete the game.
Right.
Okay. And this is where the game design critique comes in.
Okay.
Because there's a couple of little checklists that the game gives you. There's a journal where you have to defeat every monster. And then, it fills out the pages of the journal so that you've encountered and defeated all the monsters. And you get a little piece of flavor text about each one. That's very collectionist, very completionist.
Sure.
There's a certain number of upgrades and items that you have to pick that you can pick up. This many health upgrades, this many magic upgrades, yada yada yada. There's a couple of optional spell upgrades, all this other stuff. So there's all these little optional things. Plus there's the 2 halves of the magic thing that let you do the end of the game proper.
Right.
Which actually they lead to another magic thing. So it's the 2 halves of the thing leads to another thing, which leads to the proper ending of the game. Meanwhile, there's also...
I'm already worn out.
Right. And there's also all these optional bosses scattered throughout the game.
Sure.
Okay. Now, the thing is, there's 3 basic engagements to Hollow Knight, right?
Right.
You have your exploration-based gameplay. Wander the whole world, find all the things, check off all the boxes, and you're done. Okay?
Sure.
Then you have the combat, which is basically expressed in boss fights. Okay, there are main bosses who have to be beaten to finish the game.
Sure.
And then there are a bunch of optional bosses who are particularly difficult challenges. And then there is platforming. bouncing back and forth, using all of the different movement options you have to get around obstacles in increasingly convoluted ways, like jump and air dash and then double jump and then air dash again to dodge all these saw blades in your way, right? And in general, the game is actually very good at separating the optional content for those 3 engagements. So if you're interested in fighting all of the bosses, you can go and find all of the optional bosses and fight them all, and you get achievements. And there's even a little bit of extra content in the DLC that gives you extra bosses, and there's even a boss rush mode you eventually unlock. So that's all for the boss fight player, right? Or the combat player. And there's also a combat arena where they just throw waves of enemies at you, and you got to survive all the waves of enemies. And then there's these rooms that are just filled with ridiculous platforming sections, very, very difficult platforming sections. And the hardest of them, they have hidden cutscenes and achievements behind, okay? And then there's the checklist stuff. And it's all very well separated. So if you want to be like me and you're an exploration completionist, and you're good at games but not great at the platforming and combat, you can actually ignore all the platforming and combat and just do the exploration stuff. This made me very happy. It's a very smart way to design the game. Except the final magic item to see the true ending was hidden behind one of the most ridiculously challenging platform sections ever. The final 2 entries in the completionist journal are in the last of the 3 combat arenas, where it's, waves and waves and waves of combat, which is extremely difficult combat. So the true ending of the game is gated behind being an expert at all 3 of those things. And the completion for exploration is gated behind being good at both exploration and combat and platform. Whereas if you just want to play the intense platforming parts, or if you just want to play the combat parts, you can ignore the exploration. So, here I am trying to do the complete exploration and see the ending of the game. And the game has convinced me that I can do that just by skipping the optional boss fights and skipping the ridiculous platforming sections. I know there's one platforming section where I just get to see an extra little cutscene. So fun. And the final boss of the game, well, actually the final boss isn't that hard. So I start chipping away at these 2 challenges that are in my way, this intense platforming thing and this combat arena thing. And they are right at the limit of my ability. I'm getting a little bit better with every attempt, but I'm making progress by inches and just chipping away and chipping away. And I'm no longer having fun now, because now I'm just like trying to break through a brick wall by smashing my head against it. Okay. Now I get the final trinket. I get through that intense platforming section. Hooray, hallelujah. Except I didn't even feel happy or overjoyed at that point. I was just like, thank God that's over. Which is not, in general, a positive feeling that a game should leave you.
Right.
So then I go do the combat arena thing. Doing it for 2 days straight. Cannot get through it. I just can't. And they were so smart, too, because the previous 2 combat arenas were much easier, and each one had a collection prize. And the third one, when you enter it, it says, now this is just for money and an achievement, so if you don't care about those things, you don't have to bother. Which was why I was fine with skipping it, until I realized they hid 2 unique monsters in there that I needed to complete my exploration journal, which was just a dumbass move. Finally, after 2 days of banging my head against this challenge, I said, you know what? Enough of this. I just can't anymore. I'm just going to go see the final ending, and I'm going to have to accept this as I'm only at 104% completion instead of full completion, whatever percentage that might be. So I go fight my way through the fake last boss, cut my way into his dreams, fight the real last boss, and the real last boss is difficult. Not impossible. It's not like the hardest boss in the game, but it's going to take a lot of attempts. Not a lot. It's going to take me 5 or 6 tries to get it down. That's
sure.
Normally, that would be okay. But I had so frustrated myself with those other challenges that I didn't have it in me. And so the second time I lose to this final boss, the Radiance, it's called, I am F this, I'm done with this game. It can go to hell. They shouldn't ask me to do the optional combat crap to get the exploration achievement that I want. They should have separated them better, and they 99% did. But now they're keeping me from it, so I will just never see the real ending of this game, and I'm deleting it, never going back. Delete, done.
Mm.
The problem is, until that moment, I loved the game.
Mm-hmm.
Until I tried to defeat 2 challenges that I knew were just really pushing my abilities beyond what was fun. I was outside of the zone and into frustration. And had I just satisfied myself with that, I would have been disappointed because I still couldn't complete all the completion stuff. I couldn't complete the journal. I did find all the charms. I found all the hidden grubs. I found all the masks and the magic and everything. All without referring to any strategy guides or online helps or anything, because that's what I do. That's how I roll. So 2 days later, I found myself regretting having deleted the save file. At the same time, I realize this story is going on a little long. At the same time, I found myself wondering about something because now that I had finished the game, I was looking into some of the things that people had said about the game, and some, I was looking at maps of the game and been like, oh yeah, I found all of that, and just kind of scoring myself. And I discovered some things.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of arguments about which bosses are the hardest. There are a lot of arguments about what order to find the upgrades in. There are a lot of arguments about the proper path through the game. Which areas do you go through when, in what order. There are a lot of people who didn't find all the plot points in the game, because there's plot points hidden around the map that if you go through them in order, reveal the story of various characters in the game. Everybody is very confused about this game. I said, this is very odd, because part of building a good exploration-based game, and I'm firmly convinced this is a good one, it made me feel good in all the ways that exploration-based games make me feel, except for the last 4 hours of banging my head against impossible challenges. What the heck is going on? Why doesn't anybody know how to play this game? If you look back at a game like Super Metroid, or even something simpler and not famous like Shadow Complex or whatever, everyone pretty much agrees on the proper path through the game. And then there's sequence breaking and deviation and stuff like that. People will optimize the path better or do other stuff. But everybody could kind of see the proper path, the critical path, that the game designers intended. But for whatever reason, Hollow Knight, just its critical path seems to be completely shrouded in mist. And the game shouldn't work if that's the case. Because the one thing that kills exploration-based gameplay is a player sitting there and getting lost and saying, where do I go now? What do I do now? And then having to wander back through the entire map, poking at every wall. And there are some people who are not good at seeing the path that the game is laying before them in other Metroidvania games, so they tend not to enjoy that because they always feel lost.
Uh-huh.
It takes a particular type of player to enjoy this type of play, but it also takes a good design to pull the player through it properly. So I'm like, well, maybe I missed it because I tend to play contrary, right? Like I just wander in every direction. I explore everything until I will follow the proper path. And that makes it very hard to actually spot the critical path.
Sure.
And the game is open-ended enough that the critical path is not strong. It doesn't lock you in too many places and say you can't go anywhere but here. Okay. You can go a long way before you hit a dead end and have to double back toward the critical path. And a lot of the places that seem like dead ends are actually shortcuts back to previous areas. So you end up then, like wandering in a circle instead of hitting a dead end and saying, oh, now I got to go back to this door, whatever. And because the game is so huge, you can end up doing a lot of wandering without stumbling on the path. So I said, okay, I'm going to restart it, but I'm going to play it as if I'm not a dedicated, super exploration-based person. I'm going to let the game lead me. I'm going to see where it takes me. I'm going to follow its cues. I will explore the areas that I'm in, but I will not pass into new areas unless the game signals me to or leads me to. And if there's multiple new areas I can pass into, I will take the most convenient route, whatever is the path of least resistance. So if there's 2 different zones that I could get to right now and I'm near one of them, that's the one I will follow absent any guidance from the game. Okay?
Okay. All right.
Now, my first playthrough of this game took 50 hours to get to the point that I described.
Sure.
After 9 hours of playing, I have now gotten every upgrade in the game, every critical upgrade, and opened up the entire map by following the game's guidance, by letting the game lead me.
Uh-huh.
It has a very, very well-designed critical path. Not only that, if you follow this path, all of those little NPC plot points that wander around the map, you go through them all in order. So you'll hit every plot point.
Huh.
Now, there's other little bits of structure that add to the structure of the game. It is a really, really well-structured game, okay? But now this raises a question. Like, okay, fine. I can understand how I broke the game. Why I didn't see this very, very clear, obvious path. And there is why. I know there are people now who are listening who are Hollow Knight players, like saying, well, you could get this first, you could get Isma's Tear first, or you could go down here first. And they're like, yes, you can. But if you follow the path of least resistance, there is an actual order to all of the upgrades you get. And it's there, and it's very clear, and it is almost entirely, in most cases, it's based on convenience. Every time you find an upgrade, if you keep moving forward, the game dumps you near the beginning of the path to the next thing it wants you to go for. Very conveniently. It's very well done. So now, I understand why I didn't see it, but I don't understand why nobody else sees it. Especially because it's all this doing all the game out of order that has led to everybody arguing about which bosses are harder and easier, because you could do the bosses in many different orders, and you might have different upgrades and different abilities when you encounter the boss. And so you have no idea what the power level the game intends you to be for these bosses. So if I happen to fully upgrade my sword before I fought a boss that someone else fought with no upgrades, I'm going to say, oh yeah, that boss was easy. And they're going to say, that boss was very difficult. And it turns out that even the weapon upgrade, the game even paths you by the weapon upgrader a couple of times with the resources you need to upgrade the weapon. So there's even a power level progression along the critical path to the game that puts the bosses in a clever order. And there are all these other little tricks of structure that the game does. It's a loose structure. You can deviate from it. And when you deviate from it, you can really deviate far. But other people, like the average gamer, should have stumbled on that, right?
You would think.
Right. And yet nobody agrees on the path through this game. And I figured out why.
Uh-oh.
There's a fast travel system in the game.
Uh-huh.
Okay? As you explore different areas, you unlock these little, basically teleportation stations that can carry you back to any other teleportation station you've been to. Now, the game world is really, really big. So if you're just traveling by convenience, you're not inclined to backtrack very far because it's a long walk. So you'll tend to keep following the path of convenience until you get to the point in the game where the game says, okay, here's the 3 bosses, here's the 2 treasures, you now have all the abilities, the map is open to you, scour the map and get everything you want. You know, sort of the third act, or ramping up for the third act.
Right.
Which is a typical structure. And at that point, the fast travel system is really handy to have, because you're wandering the whole map, basically. You're going back, you're scouring every area again. But having the fast travel system available from the beginning of the game and also the town. At the start of the game, you start out in a town and then you drop into the dungeon. And there's shops in the town where you can return and buy stuff, which is not a feature that most Metroidvania games have. Mostly everything you earn in the game, you discover, you find through exploration. You don't buy stuff. But the fast travel system is then necessary because you have to be able to get back to town, buy stuff, and then go back to the dungeon where you were. Otherwise, it's too long a trek. So the fast travel, there is a really, really, really brilliantly designed structure to Hollow Knight that is completely undermined by its fast travel system that is available too early. Had they simply kept the fast travel system at the end of the game, and maybe not even bothered with shops and purchasable upgrades, so that you never have to go back to the first town, because the first town doesn't really do anything for you anyway, then that structure would have made the game a really good experience that would have been playable by non-exploration, non-combat, non-platformer players who just want a nice exploration-based experience that isn't too hefty. The exploration-based players could then scour the whole map after they've opened it all up. The combat players can hunt down all the optional bosses. The platforming players can then go through all the platforming challenges. Everybody would be happy. And the people who just want to finish the game can just go and make a beeline for the last boss, as they clearly intended in the beginning, because they put like the false ending in the real ending.
Huh.
Yeah.
So then, do you have a final verdict on the whole Hollow Knight thing? Like, have you made up your mind?
I absolutely love the game. It is beautiful. It is evocative. The gameplay is fun. All of the bosses are very well designed, and I have to admit, even the ones that I can't beat are very well designed. The platforming challenges are interesting. The traversal is interesting. The world that I had originally said was just too damn big isn't too damn big if you actually let the game lead you. It's actually very straightforward a good half of that map is optional content, which is fine. I actually like that idea. It lets the explorers, decide how much exploration they can take. I just think there were a couple of little missteps that had way bigger effects than they should have. And the fast travel system is the biggest culprit. I understand why they included it, and it could have been very simple if all they had done was make it so that you can't access the fast travel system until the third act of the game when you're scouring the whole map. And the shop system, they just shouldn't be selling items. It just doesn't belong in a Metroidvania game. And they should not have hidden exploration prizes behind combat and platforming challenges. But they only did that in a couple of places. It was just very frustrating because I have a journal that has 148 out of 150 entries. And I'm being asked to walk away from that because I'm just not as good a combat player. Huh. If it had been like 100 out of 200 entries, then I would have been like, I'm never going to do this. Because obviously they're including all of the optional bosses in that. Or if the journal was more clearly marked, like if the journal included all the optional bosses and stuff, then that would have been a clear indicator. Oh, this is a journal for the combat player. I don't have to engage with this because I don't have to kill everything. But it doesn't. It only includes minor enemies and mostly required bosses. So I'm like, okay, this is a progress indicator. This is an exploration challenge. And then I got 90% of the way through it and then couldn't finish it because of one bad combat challenge. It's a very, very well-designed game, though, and I highly recommend it. But if you're going to play it, I would make two recommendations. Number one, be willing to walk away from a challenge you really can't beat, because it is a very hard game. But beating the game and just at least getting to the end isn't that hard. It's just if you really engage with everything in the game, there's some challenges that will make you pull your teeth out or hair out or whatever it is you pull out. Number two, either don't use the fast travel system at all. Just say, I'm not going to use it. Don't ride the little stag train. Or only use it to return to town and then impose the rule that after you leave town, you have to go back to the station you just left. You know what I mean? Just use it to zip back to town and then pick up your progress where you left off.
Sure.
If you do that, the game will have a much more satisfying path. That's my final verdict. I have to give it one more playthrough now, just to test this path now, because I did make some mistakes along it. I got swept into some secret areas. So I'm really curious, if I were playing the game as a speedrunner, what's the best way to do it? What's the optimal critical path? And I might even make a map of it and write a little something about it, just as a diversion. I took Tiny to see the new Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald and Where to Find Him.
How was that?
It was awful.
Oh.
Okay. It was an awful film. The first Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find the movie I found it enjoyable. And it suffered from one very interesting little problem. And that, like, the conceit of the movies is it follows a wizarding naturalist on his adventures as a wizarding naturalist, capturing and taking care of magical creatures.
Sure.
And the main character, he's actually he's a spin-off character from the Harry Potter book series because he was the author of one of the textbooks.
Right.
Right. It was like the Care of Magical Creatures textbook, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And Newt Scamander wrote this book, and this was the story of him. And it takes, the first movie takes place in the 1920s. It's set in America. Newt Scamander has traveled to America to release a magical creature back into its habitat after having rehabilitated it. Accidentally, several of his collected creatures get released into New York City at a time when New York City is having a problem with wizards being exposed and anti-witch sentiment becoming very strong. And also, there is a dangerous magical creature running around New York City that no one can deal with.
Is it a cab driver?
And that would have been, that movie is exactly the movie that I wanted to see. Unfortunately, that wasn't the first movie entirely, because there was another plot. There was an entire other movie in the first movie, and it had to do with the dark wizard that preceded Voldemort. That was the wizard Grindelwald, trying to take control of this evil magical creature, which was actually being birthed by an orphan, tragic wizard who didn't know he was a wizard, being raised in an anti-witch orphanage, and he was going mad. And then there was the Magical Investigation Committee of New York, the Magical Congress of the United States, was trying to bring him to justice, and yada, yada, yada. So there were two movies going on.
Sure. Okay, that always helps.
And I didn't want that other movie. I really didn't want the prequel to the Harry Potter books. I was very excited that they decided to do a spin-off that was just, here's the adventures of a wizarding naturalist in a corner of the wizarding world we had never seen yet. It was going to focus on magical creatures. It was going to focus on the United States. And it was set in New York, and it was set in the 1920s. That's enough. That could have been a really good movie. It was very charming. And the parts where it was just Newt Scamander and his accidental muggle friend trying to chase down the magical creatures and gradually realizing that there's something dangerous eating New York, and eventually deciding to take it on, collect it. And while everybody else wanted to kill it, because, that was I'm going to go collect this and save it because it's a beautiful magical creature. And everyone else is, it's a dangerous monster. We need to kill it. That's a perfect story right there. That's a good, charming movie. And the sets were beautiful. The creatures were well designed. There was enough references to the Harry Potter universe that it satisfied the fans, but it also showed some new stuff. And it had heart and humor, and it was also a little bit light, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, the wizarding world is at war and someone's going to take over the world. But then this other movie kept intruding, and they kind of crashed together in a very clumsy way where, so
right.
The second sequel had at least 4 movies in it that I could count.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. Because it was now dedicated to tying the first movie to the canon of the Harry Potter story. So this was the one that was just firming up on, doubling down on prequelness. So now we get to see young Dumbledore, who has secretly been in control of the wizarding naturalist the entire time, because he's really trying to oppose the dark wizard Grindelwald. And now we get to go to France, and now we get to see Grindelwald's plot. But we also get to see the history of the Lestrange family. The climax of the movie starts with 3 different characters explaining their backstory in flashback form to explain why the plot of the movie was, which we didn't know up until that point. And each person explaining the backstory, by the way, is explaining the part that the previous person had wrong. It's like, no. Yeah, you thought you were this person, but actually, here's the story of how you were switched at birth. And then it's like, yes, they were switched at birth, but here's the story of how I accidentally killed the other baby. So it was literally 3 people having backstories correcting each other through flashbacks. And then Grindelwald decides to blow up Paris.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't?
Right.
Okay.
The end of the movie changed nothing, by the way.
Oh, good. That's even better. Introduce all these stories and then nothing really happens.
Yeah, that was it. The entire movie was just backstories for 7 different characters that we didn't care at all about. Because when you have that many different characters who are all plot central, you can't spend any time with them, you know? It's just such a mess. And half the characters were added just to, like, wave at the Harry Potter fans. It's like, oh my God, it's Nagini. It turns out, spoiler alert, turns out Nagini was a person before she was a snake. And now she will follow this other character around through the whole movie like a puppy, saying nothing. I swear she had 5 lines through the entire movie. And I think 3 of them were stunned gasps at what was happening off camera to alert the character that something was wrong. You know, that was her great contribution to the plot, was gasping and pointing.
Right.
What a freaking mess. And I found out this is the second of 5 movies in this series.
That works so well when you plan that far ahead deliberately. As we've seen in many efforts to date. So you're recommending an avoid?
You know, if you are a dedicated Harry Potter fan and you can't get enough of the Harry Potter universe, it will probably tickle your fancy. I gotta admit, Allie liked it. She had a good time. If you are watching it as a film, and you are not particularly committed to knowing absolutely everything there is to know about the Harry Potterverse, skip it.
Okay.
If your girlfriend is a diehard Harry Potter fan, then you have to go. And you're going to see the next 3 of them too.
Oh.
So just accept that.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah,
okay, so you got to be old stick in the mud there, huh?
Yeah.
I understand the holidays are going to be complicated around here, and I need to know what's going on.
Oh, okay. I'm leaving the show for a month and a half. How's that?
Oh, is that what it is?
No, I do. This coming weekend for the Thanksgiving holidays, I will be indisposed for the entirety of the weekend, and that will disrupt our recording schedule. And in December, I am running off to New York to visit my family for 2.5 weeks. Give or take.
Right. Okay.
It's actually 2 weeks, but the half a week is there because we're driving, and it's a 16-hour drive each way. So
the good news is I don't think we're going to miss much in the way of number of episodes. I mean, we might miss quite a bit just in content, but I don't think we'll miss much in number of episodes.
Well, this episode's going to be long enough now because of me that you could split it into a 2-parter. You know,
sure.
Listen to the other half when you, on one of the off weeks,
right?
Kind of a thing.
First things first. This is ostensibly Thursday when this comes out,
right?
Therefore, happy Thanksgiving, everybody in America and other parts of the world, even if you don't observe on the same day we do. And secondly, tomorrow, so we're recording this on day 1. Day 2, which is tomorrow, is I sit down and we record our book episode with Leslie, which will come out next week from the time of your listening of this when it first goes out, not 3 years down the road when you find this in a dead archive somewhere. So that covers the lost weekend basically for Thanksgiving. And And then regarding your absence during the Christmas holiday season here in the States, we will have yet another book episode coming out, and this will be a doozy. I promise you this will be a doozy. And we are then, both of us, taking Christmas week into New Year's off. We're just not going to produce a show that week. That's already planned. That is our family time, and it will be treated as such. So there will be no recording for the last week of December for you to listen to. You'll just have to go back through the archives. There you go. However, I believe we have worked things out correctly that we will be back in your feeds on the 3rd of January.
Yeah, that seems about right.
That seems correct. So that is probably a thing which we will do. There you go. That's what it looks like. You're going to miss, I think, at most 1 week somewhere, and that will be because we're both going to be gone.
Right. And so in there, I am going to end up missing about 3 weeks.
Yeah. You get 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
That's good. Leslie will be filling in and reading books.
That's right.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. I anticipate we will have quite the discussion on what will be the last book episode of the year. Just by nature of the book, I think we're going to be choosing and some of the things. Because one thing we're going to do is we're going to look back at all the books we've read and see what the deal is and how we came out at the end. So, plus we're going to be talking about the book and the series of books to which it belongs, even though you don't know what that book is yet.
No, I don't.
Yeah. So it'll be great. Lots of fun. That's it. That's all I wanted. So happy Thanksgiving, all of you out there listening to us right now on Thursday of Thanksgiving in November. And to the rest of you who did not listen on Thanksgiving, well, gosh, didn't you miss a nice greeting? Cody wrote in via email regarding the 4E discussion and the various missteps of same. Or possibly the missteps of the people who participated in 4E when it was a thing. I actually went to the insane step of pricing out what it would take to get new 4E core books or even new essentials material. And no, not going to happen. Not until I have a guaranteed game in an ongoing status, which I don't, so we're not. Anyway, Cody said...
If you're willing to come live in Wisconsin, sir.
You got a basement there that's got people not in it?
We do have a basement here.
Okay. All right. Think about it.
You can sleep in our storage unit.
Can I have pancakes every Saturday?
It's pancakes is Sunday, but...
Oh, pancakes are Sunday? Oh, that's fine. As long as they're on the weekend.
Saturday.
Oh, that's fine. That's great. I can handle that. That's fine. See you later. Give me a week. Cody wrote in to say, by the way, our email address is digressionsandragons@gmail.com. Cody wrote in to say, I think where 5e didn't drop the ball, where 4e did, is how 5e deals with situations such as the one described by Angry, where the fundamental rules of the game conflict with some common sense laws of reality in a jarring way. The inherent simplicity and flexibility of the 5e system would seem to prohibit the character on fire that couldn't douse the fire by simply jumping into a body of water situation from ever happening. And even if something similar were to arise, on the spot DM judgment calls are far easier to pull off in 5e than 4e. Where would you like to object, sir?
Well, first of all, it is a load of BS that DM judgment calls are easier to pull off in 5e than 4e.
Indeed.
They are actually, not only are they equally as easy in both systems because they use exactly the same action resolution system, the attack versus defense mechanic actually makes it far easier in 4E to make judgment calls regarding actions taken against other characters without falling back to clumsy ideas like opposed checks and things like that. It's actually built into so that even like grappling and tripping and stuff, very easy to resolve in 4E. Okay. That said, yes, 5e is also just as simple. I will say they are. Judgment calls are the same equality in both. Number 2, 5e has its own jarring problems with reality. I will point you to the multiply rewritten stealth rules and hiding rules and when someone is visible, invisible, what have you. And also the frequent arguments about what constitutes a weapon attack and the number of different places where they use weapon to also mean non-weapon, which has led to the confusion about things like when monks can do the things they can do and when rogues can do the things that they do, because those words have absolutely no basis in reality anymore, and a weapon is not a weapon except when it is, and there's no way to know one from the other. The fact of the matter is that all gaming rule systems must eventually contain abstractions. The on fire situation that I brought up, and I do say that that 4E was very abstract. Okay, but I will also say, don't look at 5E through a bunch of rose-colored glasses, because 5E basically is solving the problem by just not writing as much and just letting the DM fix the problems, which is also not good design. You know, they just assume that the DM will figure it out. In fact, they've even said it much. Crawford said, "Oh yeah, we purposely wrote the stealth rules bad so that GMs could just decide what to do with them." Like, hey, thanks. That really justifies the $50 I dropped on this book 3 times.
It's like that. It's like that scene in Kung Pao. We trained him badly on purpose.
So let me tell you this: when 6th edition comes out, everybody is going to be telling me all of the warts of 5th edition and why 6th edition is so much better. So, and I don't trust it anymore.
Are they working on that, you think, now?
If they're smart.
Or are they working on 5.5?
No, I would not advise them to 5.5, but I would think that they are working on 6th edition now. It's about the time.
Already so soon.
Time to start thinking about it.
Yep. It's been that long
already. If they want a good development cycle, unless they're just going to go with the whole open playtest BS again.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Yeah. So that was essentially my comment on this response. I mean, there's nothing on the face of it. There's nothing wrong with the response except for that last bit where judgment calls are easier to pull off in 5e than 4e. I disagree with it on different grounds, though. You're the DM. It's your job to make judgment calls. That is neither easier nor harder in any edition of the game, except in the fact that one game provides you more tools or fewer tools to do that with. You still have to make the judgment calls. They still can be easy. I can stand there, the same situation in 4E and the same situation in 5E, and make judgment calls just as easy. Now, whether those judgment calls are backed up by material in the rule books is another story, but I can do it. It's not any more difficult or less difficult.
Actually, one of the interesting things that I have to give D&D 4th edition credit for in regards to judgment calls is page 42. People who were fans of 4th edition will recognize page 42 immediately. Page 42 was in the D&D Player's Handbook for 4th edition, a page that explained how to use the action resolution system to improvise anything, and also provided things for like baseline DCs for things that had no rules to determine the DC, damage output for, inventing random effects on the fly. Like the players are caught in a cave-in, how much damage should it do and how do you set those numbers and so on. So it was basically a 2-page spread on mechanical improvisation so that the GM could make any judgment call they needed to make. And it literally explained how the action resolution system was to be used to make judgment calls. There's no page like that in 5th edition, you may notice.
Okay.
I think there might be something in the Game Master's Guide or Dungeon Master's Guide, but who the hell knows? I haven't read it. Because it's garbage.
Right.
And it's buried like 90 pages behind building a world. The first thing a GM needs to understand.
Right. But I guess maybe we're defining judgment calls differently here. Because to my mind, a judgment call is the call you make when you don't have enough information to make a different call.
Right.
So it's not easier or harder in any given edition. It's just what it is. It's what you do as a GM.
Well, yeah, but if the system says, okay, we understand there are things that the rules don't cover or cover poorly or things that are going to throw you off. So here's the logic behind the action resolution system. So here's where you can begin to think through those judgment calls if you need mechanics to do them. That's a handy tool for making such judgment calls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I handle it when, one of the players gets caught in a landslide, or when one of the players decides he wants to leap up and grab a chandelier and swing and try to kick the orc over a balcony?
So that player is crazy. Fine.
Well, fine. But when the game says, okay, we understand we can't cover everything, here's how to think through the problem, and here's some tools you can use to start your judgment. Right. That's a very handy tool for GMs to have. And one,
definitely. And like I said, it depends on the quality of the tools you have with which to make that. But
sure,
the judgment making process is the same, only slightly modified by the tools available to you. It's not any harder or easier. But okay. You remember, I was explaining merely an hour and a half ago that I had been playing Diablo, Diablo 3 specifically. Although I have played Diablo 2, I think that was the thing that at the time,
right?
And I'm going to just sidestep the entire which one is better argument that appears to be hovering around Diablo 3. And about how it's not really Diablo and blah, blah, blah. Because all those people have a brand new argument.
Yeah.
About Diablo Mobile. And I am not even signing up for that. So there you go.
Yeah, except there is no argument. It's pretty unanimous. Except by people who aren't actually gamers.
Right.
The people who are arguing, by the way, that I'm going to say an unpopular thing and it needs to be said. The people who are arguing that the Diablo announcement was absolutely fine and nobody should be upset about it are not actually customers.
Right.
They are people who just get mad at gamers.
Well, so much for my sidestepping that argument. Anyway.
Hey, you sidestepped it. I jumped right in.
Yes, both feet. And you had your hobnailed boots on.
Mm-hmm. That's how I do it.
Yeah. The thing I wanted to bring up was this is a parallel thing to a bit of the discussion we had last week about 4th edition.
Right.
And how it was modeled on it felt like and was admittedly modeled on some video game stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the designers were not shy about admitting that.
That is correct. They were very upfront. You claimed at the time, and this didn't make it into the episode for reasons of time, right. But you claimed... I have
to trust you on that because I didn't listen.
Yeah, nobody does. That the creators of 4th edition were very open about saying that they were inspired by elements of World of Warcraft, the MMO. Right. And I disagree.
Okay.
I mean, I realize they said that, so it's hard to disagree with something they actually said without some very direct proof that they are, in fact, lying through their teeth. Mm-hmm. But I disagree.
And because what you have brought up to me is a very interesting academic discussion, I am simply going to take it as an academic discussion and not try to point out that you are provably wrong.
Right.
Because that's less interesting than the discussion that we can now have.
Just to be upfront about it, I am prepared to admit that yes, the designers were inspired by WoW.
Right, and that they actually took a lot of mechanical solutions to problems from WoW.
And in fact, I'm totally okay with that because it does nothing to what I'm about to assert, which is that 4E is actually much more like Diablo than it is WoW. Okay? They could have been inspired by WoW, but what they got was something closer to Diablo.
Right, in terms of the actual feel, let's say the tone.
So now I have to prove this to you.
Yes, that would be nice.
All right. I have
it's hard to argue with you if you don't prove it.
I have made no notes, so I'm going to be all over the place with this proof, or at least this demonstration of proof, whatever you want to call it. That to be clear and upfront about this, 4E is more like Diablo than WoW.
Okay.
So, and I have to begin by asking a series of questions.
And I assume that I am the stand-in for the audience and have to answer these.
Yes. How do the designers of Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition want you to feel when you are playing 4th edition?
Heroic.
Okay.
Powerful.
All right.
Or empowered, I will say.
All right.
Yeah, that's really where, like, if I could keep coming up with more words, but it would just be synonyms for the same idea.
Okay.
They want you to feel like you're the big damn hero.
The big damn hero. The big damn individual hero. Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
No. You are part of a team of big damn heroes.
You're part of a team of big damn heroes. Okay.
Yeah. If you're gonna ask that, I have to say it leans more toward teamwork than individual behavior.
That's fine.
I mean, the role mechanic and synergies between the different character abilities all speak to that.
Absolutely. I will put that in the WoW column.
Okay.
All right. I have another column labeled Diablo.
Okay.
Into which I have written heroic and powerful or empowered.
Sure.
Okay. Because for starters, I don't think WoW necessarily makes you feel heroic.
No.
Okay. Nor does it necessarily make you feel empowered and powerful.
Nope.
Okay. But Diablo, you start that game by yourself. You are the savior of the world.
Mm-hmm. Of a dark world.
Of a dark world.
A world that has fallen from cataclysms in the past.
Correct.
Which are very heavy themes in the default D&D universe of 4th edition. Just throwing that out there.
Sure. I will write that in the Diablo column.
Which, by the way, I realize now I'm playing this game wrong because I'm just helping you make your argument. I'm like, don't forget to use this against me too.
Right. Right.
I'm the tutorial monster in the game that reminds you to equip your weapons before you attack him.
Yeah. Well, see, part of the problem is you played way more 4E than I did, so I also need to use you as a reference for 4E. Yeah. And not just a WoW apologist or whatever. Anyway, so in Diablo, when you create your character and you go out in that first field or the first area or whatever, and you start beating on things, they fall down. And they fall down rapidly, and you don't waste a lot of time killing them, even at the very lowest power levels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You just burn through things if you want to. And then you start getting 4th level comes along real quick like. Right? And about 4th level is when your powers start locking in. At least Diablo 3 is when powers really start locking in, and you've got a selection of a couple of good, really strong things that just wipe guys out in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That makes you feel powerful.
Yep.
Okay. And it just keeps going from there, at least in Diablo 3 until 12th level. At 12th level, forget it. All bets are off. You now own the game. And you can go fairly smoothly from there at 12th level all the way up to your final, whatever your final destination level is going to be, the final encounter with the final boss. And you can own everything in that game. Okay. Even if you play really badly, you can own everything in that game.
Right.
From 12th level on. You've got the proper gear. You've got the proper moves. You've got, everything's worked out. If you've been paying attention, you just sail your way right through to the end. And even the big bad bosses, they may take a little longer, but they're going down.
Right.
And they're going down. And you're the one who makes them do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start by arguing that the feel of Diablo is much closer to what they wanted 4E to feel like than the feel of WoW, which is you spend a lot of time, as I remember WoW, because I've played that too. You spend a lot of time trying to gear up for an end game that you may or may not ever get to, because it keeps getting hung up in this change from being able to kind of solo things to all of a sudden needing a team to handle stuff.
Right.
Okay. Which arguably makes you feel less powerful as the game goes on.
Well, see, now I had written down a little note on a piece of paper here.
Uh-huh.
to come back to because of something you said. I would like to come back to it now.
Go for it.
You said Diablo makes you feel powerful, and World of Warcraft does not make you feel powerful.
Right.
And I would actually argue that Diablo is about being a hero and becoming a better hero. And World of Warcraft is being a nobody and building yourself to power. I mean, if you look at like the core engagements of World of Warcraft, it is all entirely about the end game.
Right.
Right? And it is all sort of working your way through talent trees, getting all of the right equipment, and all of that other stuff so that you can join a party, join a raid group, join a PvP group, whatever it happens to be, and then take on the heroic challenges of the world.
Right.
So from that standpoint, World of Warcraft, just from a thematic perspective of power building, could be seen as the prequel to what Diablo makes you feel like.
Right.
Because Diablo, you start off feeling like you are the world's only hope. And you are already a cut above everybody else.
Right.
And then, but you still have to become equal to the tasks in front of you. Right. But you start off from a position of power. And I would actually say, just now that I'm making your argument for you more.
Yes, again, thank you. That's what I was going to say.
World of Warcraft is D&D 3.5.
Think so?
And Diablo, in terms of character growth and power level. Okay? Because if you also look at like the feel of WoW, the world is full of powerful people.
Right.
Of which you are just one of many, many, many.
Right. They're everywhere, literally.
And that's literally one of the design conceits of D&D 3.5. Well, I mean, they said, okay, all stats are going to be the same. Monsters, NPCs, PCs, they all have exactly the same stat block, right? They all have all the same skills, feats, yada, yada, yada. There's nothing special about the PCs,
right? Except
in terms of the level. And if you look at things like the settlement building rules, where you have rules to literally determine how many, 7th level fighters there are in a town. Okay. The world is full of other PCs or other people who are on the same power level as the PCs.
People who could just as easily step up and do the job you're doing.
Right. So 3rd edition is WoW, and 4th edition thematically is Diablo. A dark world of which you are the only hope because you are already powerful. You are already capable in some way. Heroes are special.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, Dungeons and Dragons goes to great lengths to point out in most editions that you're already better than everybody else.
That sort of varies from edition to edition.
Yeah, well, it was prevalent in 5th. It is prevalent in 5th. It was prevalent in 4th. 3rd, I think it was.
Not really. See, this is what I'm saying is 3rd, one of the central conceits was that you were an everyman. You were just another one. And I could give you the perfect example. 3rd edition was when Forgotten Realms shone. 2nd and 3rd edition were the heydays of Forgotten Realms. And Forgotten Realms is very much a world filled with powerful characters and NPCs and Drists and Elminsters and all sorts of stories happening with all sorts of other characters just as powerful or more powerful than your character. And you were eventually going to be a part of that high-level circle of the world's greatest heroes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say that the idea of the specialness of the PC really entered the game in the 4th edition era.
Fair enough.
In terms of what the game actually emphasized. Obviously, individual tables will do things differently and have their own ways.
Right.
And we are not talking about any of that right now.
No, we're not.
We always have to have that stupid caveat.
Mechanically speaking. Okay. When you fire off a power in 4E, what in theory is happening?
When you fire off a power in 4E what?
Yeah, you've got your encounter powers and your daily powers and your once in a lifetime powers, or however that's arranged. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. No, I understand. I understand what you're talking about. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
What I'm asking is, okay, so I'm in an encounter. I use one of my powers. I tip one of them cards or whatever, however I'm doing it. I use one of my powers. What is theoretically that supposed to indicate is happening?
Depends on the power.
In general speaking, I guess what I'm getting at is,
yeah, I'm sorry. I don't see what you're leading toward.
I'm laying out an effect or some damage of some sort, right?
Okay.
When I use an encounter power, right?
Yeah.
How is that effect or that damage supposed to feel? What is it? I don't have a better word for this other than to keep using the word I keep using. Let me think here for a second. Is that just one piece of the full kit, or is that the full kit using a power?
I'm sorry. I still really don't see what you're driving at here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, and I would like to answer the question honestly, but I don't know what you're asking.
Okay. As a character, I have a suite of powers, right?
Sure.
They're broken up as at will, encounter, and daily, correct? In 4E.
Yeah, and utility.
Utility. Okay. If I use an at-will power, okay, let's say we're having a combat or whatever. If I use an at-will power, is that power likely to be a piece of a larger strategy, or can it be a strategy all by itself?
Generally, it's intended to be a piece of the larger strategy.
Okay. Now, in my own character, will I have the other pieces of that strategy, or is somebody else going to have the other pieces of that strategy?
It could go either way, but in general, the game really does want you to treat the whole party as part of your grand strategy.
Okay.
And so there are a lot of places where that will happen. And in fact, there are some character types entirely built around using other people as part of the strategy.
All right. Now then, in WoW, how does using a power there fit into that? Is it its own strategy? Are you capable of completing the strategy, or do you rely on others to do that?
It depends.
Uh-huh.
It depends
on your
on
build.
Where you are at in WoW.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you are in your level up, if you are just going through the normal leveling up process, doing quests and yada yada yada, in general, because the game at that point is mostly built around you as an individual, and even if you group up, it's you're all just doing your own thing. Then your strategy has to be complete. Your character has to be able to handle it. If you are in a dungeon, one of the specific instance dungeons in a group and facing the boss, it is expected that you are one part of the strategy and that the other players are involved.
Okay.
Is that a fair assessment?
I believe that's accurate. Yes.
Okay. It's been a long time since I did WoW.
Yeah, it has been for me as well. In Diablo,
mm-hmm.
Okay, at least Diablo 3, I think this is also accurate for Diablo 2.
Mm-hmm.
You are expected, not only is a given power the strategy,
mm-hmm.
but it is also expected to be completed by other powers that you personally have. So you complete your own strategy.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, you can team up in Diablo, but then that's two people running two different strategies to accomplish the same goal.
Right.
Okay. It's not I have half the strategy and they have half the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Each of us has a complete strategy in and of ourselves.
Right.
Which at least to me seems like it goes back to the heroic empowering part of the theme,
Sure. It's
okay.
On the one hand, it strengthens that argument, but I will also say it weakens the 4E argument.
It does a little bit. It's fine. Some do, some don't.
Which is fine.
Whatever.
Right. I mean, it's not going to be a perfect argument, and that's fine.
We evaluate as we go along here. These are just things I looked at. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so WoW, in terms of your power usage and your strategies, is closer to 4E than Diablo is.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll give it that. That's fine.
Which, again, is not surprising because that was one of the biggest features they took from WoW, was the group dynamic.
Right.
Specifically the group dynamic of, instance dungeons and raid bosses and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of characters and character building.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is where it's going to get a little weird. How would you characterize the character building in 4E? What is, how do I ask this question even? What is the thinking behind building a character in 4E?
There's a couple of different ways to go. I mean, obviously, first you envision the character you want to play.
As established, yes.
And then, because a character is part mechanics and part imagination, really. But then you forget about all of that stuff anyway, because what you really do is you choose, basically, your choice in D&D 4th edition is about choosing an archetype and a role, and finding the character that fits those two things, and then selecting a sort of a sub category, essentially a subset of that character class's abilities that speak to your particular play style.
Okay, give me for example.
So, for example, on the one hand, I might want to play a strong, like a fighter type. I like the the knight in shining armor, swords and shields and all that sort of stuff. I like physical martial combat. But I also like to be the protector of my party. I like to be the guy who stands up front and defends everybody. Right? So I decide to play a fighter because the fighter is a martial defender. They fit that archetype of, they're a combat expert and they fit that role. And then I look at the fighter's powers and I see that, the fighter's biggest choice is their weapon type. And do they want to use, a sword and shield, or do they want to use a heavy two-handed weapon to deal more damage or whatever, and what fits my play style? And I'm like, well, I kind of like the sword and shield. I like that traditional knight role. So then I choose the powers that work best with sword and shield. It's sort of like choose a class based on your archetype and the role you want to fill, and then choose a talent tree based on the way you want to accomplish that role and sort of your sub-role and your vision for the character.
Okay. Yeah. How does WoW do it?
Well, essentially the same way. It is choose an archetype, and choose a role that you want to fill, assuming you want to group up eventually. And then each class that you have suits one or two roles very well, but they usually are very strongly aligned with one particular role. And then each class has three talent trees. I think it's always 3. I think they have 3 talent trees that either provide them with a particular way of accomplishing their goal or allow them to adopt their goal by way, or their strategy by way of a secondary strategy,
Okay. Diablo, in my experience, has this sort of setup where you pick a character type, and these are generally speaking pretty oddball character types. I mean, you don't normally find a necromancer as a character type. It tends to be a subtype of, wizard or something like that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. They do have the standards. They got, barbarians and fighters and, that kind of thing. Yeah. But with what you figure out how you want to play. Okay. And you select a character class that seems interesting to you. Okay. Seems like it might be close to that role in some way.
Right.
And then within that, you have a selection of powers. In 3, they've kind of taken away the humongous, confusingly complicated character, skill trees and whatnot.
Right.
Okay. They've streamlined that process a little bit. But within a given character, you have, I would say, 3 to 4 different approaches that you can take to using that character. that are all pretty equally valid in terms of completing the game.
Right.
Okay? Mm-hmm. It's up to you to choose where you want to focus. Everybody can be a controller if they want to be a controller. Mm-hmm. You know, even the barbarian. Everybody can be a glass cannon if that's what they want to be. Everybody can kind of tank if they want to. You know, that kind of stuff. So you've got the trinity of roles there, like usual. Right. And then there's always the fourth option, which is the weird option for each class.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So you've got a number of ways, but any given character can pretty adequately fulfill any of the three main roles plus one.
Right.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Which means that you're not limited to choosing, if you want to be a controller, you're not limited to choosing just one or two of those classes.
Okay.
It's possible to do it with each. Some, yes, more effectively than others, but it's possible to do it reasonably well and get yourself through the game with any one of those classes in any of the roles available to them.
Sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This one's kind of a toss up, I think, but I'm going to say 4E is more role focused, mm-hmm. like WoW, than it is in Diablo.
Can I throw you a life preserver though?
Well, no, if you want to, yeah.
Yeah, because this argument, you're right. This argument is a very hazy argument, and it sort of points 4th edition toward WoW.
Right.
But here's what you have to keep in mind with WoW and Diablo and the character creation system.
Right.
Okay. World of Warcraft's character creation system was Diablo 2's character creation system.
Right.
Okay, it was for Diablo 2, if I recall correct, because Diablo 1 didn't do skills and talent trees and stuff. Diablo 2 had the whole concept of talent trees and builds and what have you. Then they took that system, I think in like 2003 or 2004, I can't remember when World of Warcraft came out. That was the system that they built into the character creation for World of Warcraft. However, they ran into an issue because, as you pointed out, when they, with Diablo 2, although Diablo 2 was available for multiplayer over LAN and stuff, it was primarily a solo play experience.
Right.
It was a solo experience that you could do with more people.
Sure.
Basically it was 4 players all playing a solo game together, right? Mm-hmm. When they hit World of Warcraft, they wanted a system where people would ultimately be encouraged to team up and do things together. And so when they started building the classes and the talent trees, they took away that sort of every class could be everything aspect to build that need for teamwork. Okay, now obviously Diablo 3's character creation system is a simplification of Diablo 2's and World of Warcraft because they those two things just started feeding each other at Blizzard. Okay, which again had to be scaled back to a solo play experience. And the reason I think 4th edition's character creation is going to end up being closer to World of Warcraft than Diablo is because it is exactly the same character creation system in both, simply with the switch between solo play versus team play.
Right.
Flipped. So I don't think this is an argument for either side.
Yeah, it's a toss-up.
It's a toss-up because Diablo and World of Warcraft's character creation system really don't do anything differently from each other, except in terms of that switch between solo and multiplayer.
And I feel like I should also point out, we're not talking optimized building here.
Right. You certainly could.
Yeah, you certainly could, but we're not, because what we're talking about is just your average Joe experience.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So as it stands,
and both games, like ultimately the choice you engage with character generation, the first choice you make is really what do you want to do in the game and how do you want to look when you're doing it?
Right.
And so again, it's the same engagement in both cases.
I feel like 4E, when you go to do something in an encounter or whatever, it doesn't want that encounter to last terribly long. It doesn't want you to really be 8 turns deep in a combat.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
Okay. The plan was that no combat would last longer than about 5 rounds.
Right.
That was the stated design intention.
Sure.
There were 2 things that broke that, and that was boss fights went on way longer.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you could argue the same for video games, and you
Sure.
could say that that's how it should be anyway, because boss fights are the climax.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem was the length of time it took to resolve those 5 rounds could drag on in 5th edition.
Mm-hmm. In 4th.
In 4th edition, yeah. Some people had a real problem with the amount of time that combat took in 4th edition. Because if you allowed people to engage with it at their leisure, it could become a slog very quickly.
Right.
That said, combats could also move very quickly. I mean, you had the minion rules.
Sure.
Which were creatures that were so weak that they went down in a hit.
Mm-hmm.
For exactly that reason.
Does that sound like either WoW or Diablo to you?
No, that's Diablo.
Totally Diablo.
Yeah, Diablo is focused on, you cutting your way through hordes of creatures. Vanilla WoW was you would pick a creature in your field of view, aggro it, and trade blows back and forth until it was dead, and then, and then keep. So every fight was a duel.
Yeah, I've had.
And heaven help you if you aggroed too many creatures at once.
I've had combats in Diablo where the big bad boss guy doesn't get to finish his lines.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like he's down. The line is still playing. He's dead.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very immediate, very fast. And you always know when you're behind the power curve a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the fight takes a little longer.
Right.
A little longer than you're used to up to that point. I don't feel like that's the case in WoW.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand.
I feel like WoW is geared towards the long, complicated battle. At least in the late game stage. Early game, maybe, 1 hit, 2 hit, that kind of thing.
No, even in the early game, it would take 2 to 3 hits for you to take one thing down. Right. And your character would be slinging their auto attack, their at will power as you were.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would interrupt that with using your more powerful abilities. And then, like I said, if you would have to go deal with 10 kobolds, you would pick a kobold you could see, launch your first attack, it would run over to you, and you would chip away at it, and it would chip away at you until it was dead. It was sloggy. So, and I think the important thing here is not the actual number of minutes it took to resolve the combat,
right?
But actually how those minutes felt.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Diablo, as you point out, the combat feels very fast, like it's decisive. It's resolved very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You lay into the enemies and you just cut them down one after another until they're all gone.
Right.
Whereas in World of Warcraft, each enemy, however weak, was a process, and it was a little bit of a commitment to, okay, I'm going to now go through this fight. Dink, 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 fight resolved. Now I'm going to go through this fight. Dink, 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 fight resolved. In Diablo, as you move from fight to fight, it's, okay, bring on the next horde.
Yeah.
Whack, 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 whack. Okay, bring on the next horde. Whack, 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 whack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difference of feel, but not one that you're going to see if you just count the minutes.
Right.
And I'm with you there.
Okay. So I'm going to give that to Diablo.
Mm-hmm.
What else should I consider here? What do you think? Because I'm at the end of my consideration list, but what else do you think I should be considering?
No, honestly, see, it is a very interesting discussion because it's always neat to talk about how the mechanics of a thing actually lead to the feel of something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we're looking at the mechanics of 4E and how they feel in play, and what they feel closer to versus where those mechanics came from. Right. But here's the interesting point of view. I mean, here's the interesting. This is why, this is a hard discussion for me to engage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because at the end of the day, World of Warcraft was not a Warcraft multiplayer game. Warcraft was a real-time strategy game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about plunking buildings down and ordering your units to do things, and then you would place down other units and have wars and all of that stuff. Okay. World of Warcraft was the franchise, but the mechanics, the gameplay itself, was Diablo 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. World of Warcraft was Diablo 2, the MMO.
Right.
Okay. Everything about that game, from the cooldown on the attacks to, talent trees and class building, all of that stuff was an attempt to translate the Diablo experience into both the Warcraft universe and into an online multiplayer game. And they obviously made a lot of changes to pull that off, but the heart of the mechanics is very much the same, and that's ultimately what this argument about, is that now we have the same basic set of mechanics expressed in 3 different forms, with some modifications that had to be made depending on the number of players.
Sure.
Right? And now what we're trying to discuss is whether this last set of mechanics that is inspired by the other 2 sets of mechanics, which were the same mechanics, came out feeling more like one or the other. And in the end, I would argue that what really makes 4th edition feel more Diablo than World of Warcraft has nothing to do with the mechanics.
Oh.
Yeah.
You have a previously unforeseen insight. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Lay it on me.
Here, again, if we look at all the mechanics, we can say, okay, you can make an argument that the mechanics came from either one, because they were either stealing from World of Warcraft or they were stealing from World of Warcraft's source material.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, they're going to end up with a pile of mechanics that look similar to both. Fine and dandy. But World of Warcraft was a big, interconnected, highly magical world filled with powerful entities having, wars on the scale of continents, all forming alliances with each other. And you were, at the start of the game, you were just another grunt who was hoping to eventually distinguish themselves to the point where they could become one of those characters who could move mountains. Right?
Sure.
That's World of Warcraft. Diablo, on the other hand, is a world that has suffered multiple cataclysms. It is a world that is teetering on the brink of falling into evil's hands yet again.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people are downtrodden, those people who are not just directly corrupted by what the world has become.
Right.
And into this dark world, a shining beacon of light appears. A hero, or a group of heroes, who, they start off a little bit more powerful than the rest of the world because everybody can see their heroes. They don't have, poop on their boots.
Right.
As the line from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. They were the knights in shining armor, getting ready to save the world from evil. Right? 4th edition was, and it spells it out very clearly, and they talked about this a lot in the preview material. It is a world after the fall of the great empires. It is a world after the fall of all the big kingdoms. The races have gone back to their homelands. Darkness has spread between the points of light. There are no continent-sized kingdoms. Okay, everything is small and local. And, the fantastic and the magical is also dark and dangerous, and it is out there lurking in every corner. You are in town and you are reasonably safe, but the minute you step beyond those walls, the wilderness is all around you, the darkness is all around you, and you are the only one brave enough to go out there anyway. Now, obviously, all of that, and by the way, you also are not stupid enough to step out there alone, because you can't face everything alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is all the world building that was done in 4th edition. And there's a lot of it, and it is shot through everything from the race descriptions and the god list to all of the different published adventures and the lore in the monster manual. All this stuff is played up in there, okay? And obviously the PCs follow different rules for character creation than monsters and NPCs because the player characters are special. They are the heroes of the game. They are the only ones who get the at-will and the encounter and the daily powers. Mm-hmm. I mean, monsters have at-will powers, and some of them have recharge powers and encounter powers, but those are the exceptions, not the rules. You know, there's no other class that gets the slate, no other creature in the world that gets the slate of abilities that a PC does. And the game is even careful to say, don't build NPCs like you build player characters. Player characters are special. Okay? It's that stuff that is Diablo, not World of Warcraft. I think if you're looking for why the game feels the way it does, because the designers of 4th edition did a very good job of building that lore into the mechanics of the game, just in decisions that seem like small. Like I said, player characters not using the same rules as everything else to be built, or not being built on the same rules as everything else in the world. That alone right there says the heroes are special. The heroes are different, you know? That's why 4th edition is Diablo and not World of Warcraft. It has nothing to do with the mechanics. The mechanics are pretty much the same in both World of Warcraft and Diablo, barring some necessary adjustments to the platform and the number of players, you know. Yep. But it's the theming elements that made it Diablo. And the fact that you recognize that also says that the developers of D&D did a really good job because they were lifting their mechanics from World of Warcraft and got Diablo out of it because they built the theme elements into the game as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
I stand victorious.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, I didn't want to fight this with you because it is an interesting argument to have. But in the end, when I was looking at it, I'm like, yeah, no, I agree with you. And I know exactly what you're saying. But then as you started listing your reasons, you had all the wrong reasons.
Of course.
Like that. Yeah. Well, yes, but no.
But because how could I possibly engage with you about it if I wasn't in some way in error?
Right.
Where would we talk?
I'm not even going to have that discussion.
Yeah. Where would we talk? Anyway, yes. For all those reasons and a few more, I think probably 4E was more Diablo than it was WoW. The only other place I would say WoW had the distinct advantage would be in the fact that Diablo is basically one long mission, whereas 4E and WoW tend to be a series of smaller missions. I mean, you could do a bigger, like, overarching mission kind of thing, but there's more teeth to chew in WoW than there is in Diablo.
It's interesting that you even say that, because if you look at the 9 published adventures that formed the primary adventure track for 4th edition, starting with Keep on the Shadowfell and all the way up through whatever the last one was.
Sure.
The H1, H2, H3, P1, P2, P3,
far as I'm concerned, Keep on the Shadowfell was first and last. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, actually, some of the adventures were interesting. Like Thunderspire Labyrinth was a really interesting adventure.
Yeah.
Because it was an attempt to deal with a dungeon that was too big to map. You know, like the entire inside of this mountain was a dungeon, and the players would explore corners of it. But obviously, you couldn't have them just mapping all those tunnels in between the interesting places.
You couldn't.
So it was an interesting way of addressing that issue. But what I was going to say is that those adventures all actually formed one continuous story from beginning to end.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it was one long quest. So right. I cannot remember the titles of the adventures, though.
I don't know. Didn't play them. Don't know.
Assault on the Nightworm Fortress, Death's Reach, Demon Queen's Enclave. One of them was the last one.
Anyway, that's what I got for today, for this week. And I have to tell you, sir, at 2 hours and nearly 40 minutes of recorded time, we are definitely out of time.